Okay, so we'll have a opportunity to. I'm happy to entertain a motion for approval of December minutes with the correction of the spelling of the name of John Leslie.
A
If-
second. I will make that motion. I will make the motion that we approve the December meeting minutes with the correction of my name spelling.
I'll second.
Two
Excellent.
seconds.
Patrick.
Patrick.
Okay.
And does anybody have any other corrections that need to be made or reasons to otherwise object to moving that forward? Hearing none, I call the vote. All in favor of approving the December minutes, thumbs up or verbal aye.
Aye.
Excellent. And all opposed? Oh, nice, Jerry. Okay, unanimous passage. And we are looking at our program today is about the state of our neighborhood. And we have a brief presentation that a few of us made. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And let's see, share. And here it is. It'll only take a couple minutes. Don't blink.
Our community garden keeps on growing. All kinds of produce those teens are sowing. Compost workshops and pruning galore. Community where it wasn't before. Learning together in all kinds of weather. Plant it and watching it grow. In spite of this virus, we'll end up making some progress. Against all odds, we're building something fine. We're gonna keep on chasing after that rainbow. With any luck, we'll get it done just in time. Turning those firs into useful timber, stacking that wood, nuts all limber. Rebuild a schoolhouse, demolish a barn. Having a home will be a shot in the arm. Form a non-profit, we just can't stop it. Stop those off, you know. Urban reserves is in the rear view. Neighborhood plan still needs a clear view. Community park is past designing. Our neighborhood is the silver lining. It's our baby, I don't mean maybe. We're gonna help it grow. In spite of this virus, we'll end up making some progress. Against all odds, we're building something fine. We're gonna keep on chasing after that rainbow. With any luck, we'll get it done just in time.
Yeah.
Yay. Nice harmony.
Oh, well, that was sure something. Let's see.
Brava.
Knowing how much I love what I've decided is our annual, at least as long as I wear the crown, our annual appreciation meeting where everyone gets their appreciation, and it's so hard to do when only one person can talk at a time, because what's really exciting is when the entire room is making a whole bunch of noise. So we're going to do our appreciation today, but you can scream if you want, but it's good if you do something like this so they know that you're making noise. Anyway, so we were going to start with the annual appreciation. So, and that comes as part of looking back on 2020, which was a year that seems like we didn't get much done, or that was troublesome to get things done. But when I stop and really take stock, I think that as a group, we've done a bang up job. And I'm just ever so proud to be a part of this group of people who are willing to work that hard for their neighborhood. So I have a little bit of a list, and then we'll ask for other people who are leading initiatives in the neighborhood to give the updates on those initiatives. So we started in January, and I guess I should preface this with, although we advertised that this was the meeting where we were going to vote for new board members, we did the same thing this year that we did, created the same error where we didn't actually do a mailing to our whole neighborhood. So we're planning on entertaining nominations, self-nominations or other nominations, and we can do that this month, but we won't be voting till next month. So we can all try to bring some more people out to the meeting next month to try to boost the pool of applicants and the pool of voters. So that's just a what do you call, like a disclaimer for why we're not getting there today. So we one of the big things I think we did in February was we put in as a group well over 100 hours and took down a barn and put it all away in parts for future use. So although that seems like a lifetime ago, that was in 2020. We then had to close down shortly after that because of our COVID virus. And I thought our neighborhood did a great job of launching a recover site and creating the bat phone for people to call in, and creating a really helpful and informative mailing to help connect our residents with all kinds of services that are available. And things sort of, I don't know, I think I managed to learn how to use my computer better, which, you know, I have to say is not a small thing for me. We've managed to figure out how to continue holding meetings like this. We helped the community park planning process bring much larger numbers to their Zoom webinar platform than they had experienced before. And I'd like to acknowledge everybody who participated in the urban reserves planning process, because the city and the county have agreed on urban reserves option that does a lot of what our neighbors told us they wanted in terms of preserving agricultural land. And that had to do with a lot of lobbying from our neighbors. So I want to make sure we thank everybody who put time into that. We have our transit station project coming to fruition in February, and continued engagement around the rest of the site there. And we have our neighborhood planning process, which came to a screeching halt on the tracks with COVID, but has since hooked up a couple more engines to the train, and we're no longer just a caboose waiting at the station. We're actually chugging a little bit down the tracks and working on bringing that into the next year, hopefully getting it to the place where it's in front of electeds, and we're getting to approval of an action plan of some kind. So I'm sure I've missed a lot of things as well. Oh, and the schoolhouse project, of course. And the check went into the nonprofit, so we're on our way to go ahead and get that nonprofit started, which was no small thing. And once we get that in line, we can go ahead and work with the city on terms for the schoolhouse. So first, I guess I would like to recognize Jerry Finnegan, who creates copious and well-organized notes and minutes from every meeting and keeps us on track in terms of all of our Santa Clarion, our email listserv, and does all kinds of other support efforts in the neighborhood, has a large finger in the nonprofit and Aubrey Park, and does its Greyhound Rescue Project, and it just basically mentors all of us in all ways possible. So 10 seconds of appreciation for Jerry.
Thank you.
Yay, Jerry.
And Gary Haliski, who is a co-adopter of Aubrey Park and a fantastic webmaster who is willing to juggle all kinds of emails that I forward his way, trying to keep our neighborhood well informed of all the opportunities that arise, and doing it with such incredible grace and enthusiasm, no matter what I manage to push over and onto his plate. And so I greatly, greatly appreciate you, Gary. Go!
Yay.
And to Matt Vose, who has the cutest baby in the neighborhood and helps us in all kinds of ways, especially if there's something physical. He's happy to pitch in and be there for whatever we need. So thank you, Matt. And to Ann Vaughn, who single-handedly is carrying the transportation part of our neighborhood planning process forward, and is doing that despite a sense of attrition from some of our cohorts, and managing to keep that very complex part of the plan well in hand. So thank you, Ann. And to Louis Vidmar. And Louis, I wanted to, that's another thing from our list. To Louis, who has made huge efforts for our diversity and inclusion statement and position for our community organization, which in this past year we did manage to adopt actually as part of our mission. And so I'd like to thank you for that, Louis. And Louis, who also is a part of the Citizen Advisory Committee for the neighborhood plan and is working in the parks department of that plan, and does all kinds of other web support for us, and is a personal consultant for all matters technical for yours truly, who has a hard time leading meetings like this. So thank you, Louis. And to Mary Leontovich. And Mary is also on the Citizen Advisory Committee for the community organization and keeps me supplied with chocolate so I can keep going, and is really great at asking difficult questions and has a very, very hair trigger bullshit meter, which I so appreciate because it keeps us on track and keeps us from going in the weeds. And so I'd like to thank you profoundly, Mary, for that. And to Pat Walsh, who is our conduit to LTD. Pat, thank you for your service to LTD and to our community.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're doing great. And to Michael Neiman, who's one of our newest community organization members and has attended at least 3 meetings so far this year, and he only just arrived this summer, and as an adult, learned how to swim and how to ride a bike. Go, Michael!
Thank you.
And to Dawn Leslie, who's also serves on the board of the community organization and helped make that incredible video with her dulcet tones, and is, oh my goodness, and I'm trying to put it all together. Let's see. And who volunteers for Egan from our neighborhood and does all kinds of other community activism through the rest of the world that keeps SCCO connected to the rest of our greater city. And of course, who is our own personal bat woman and takes care of the bat phone and fields any incoming requests for that, and keeps us on track and was a big part in moving our diversity and inclusion statement forward to completion this year. So thank you for your service. And to Patrick, who has 2 of the jolliest boys in all of North Eugene and serves on the board and is a stalwart volunteer at Aubrey Park and an all-around great guy with never something negative to say. I don't know quite how he does that, but I'm still trying to puzzle it out after at least 4 years of knowing him, and is just there when you need him. So to Patrick. And Jerry Moore. And Jerry, there we go, had a glitch. And to Jerry Moore, who has stepped up and been an incredible working group member for the neighborhood planning process, incredible helper in demolishing the barn, and has technical skills that she's willing to volunteer at a moment's notice, and helps us navigate, or at least helps me navigate, all the bits and pieces that I sort of feel tend to fall by the wayside, because she's always proactively asking me, how can I help? Maybe I could do that. And I think that that is an admirable quality. So thank you, Jerry. It's so quiet like this. And to Tim Felker, our Neighborhood Association co-chair, longtime neighborhood compatriot, also hosts, I don't even know how all these electronic things work together, but he hosts our domain, I think, or something. He's a technical wizard without whom we wouldn't be able to be reaching out to our neighbors in the way we do. And also is leading or heavily involved in the timber project, and participates in the Aubrey Park work parties, and in the very occasional, not because Tim only participates occasionally, but because we only have occasional work parties at Wendover Park, and all the other ways that Tim helps support SCCO and keeps things moving forward. Tim, thank you for being that person who keeps us on track.
Thank you.
And for Peter Thurston, I hope you're there, Peter, because we're going to sing your praises for the community garden and Spring Creek Gardens project, and all you do to help build community through helping people learn how to grow their own food. Oh, and who also gets a lot of support from Tim in the composting workshops that happen at the community garden. I think they do a lot together out there. And I just want to thank you for that, because it's become a real showpiece of our neighborhood, and one of the if I think of our neighborhood as a human body, it's one of the pumping organs that keeps the lifeblood flowing through our neighborhood. So thank you, Peter. And to George Price. And George, thank you for being heavily involved in the community garden with Peter and with Tim, and roping other people into that project, like Michael, who's excited to learn to be a gardener thanks to you, and all the things you do to help bring to the fore the idea of, seniors and senior services, and the way we aren't preparing adequately for that, and for participating in all the other initiatives that happen in our neighborhood. And thank you, George. And to Kevin Jones. Are you there, Kevin Jones? Well, I know a lot about Kevin Jones, and there he is. And to Kevin Jones, who has taken to showing up to SCCO meetings in the recent past, and likes to help with all things wood related and game related, and helps create an agricultural reality out on the outskirts of Santa Clara that helps feed our local populace. Thank you,
You had
Kevin
to say
Jones.
that, or our relationship would be hindered. Thank you.
Okay, well, thanks for your patience with that, everybody. So maybe we should.
Who's gonna talk about Kate?
Oh, no, please don't.
I think I wouldn't be complete unless we did.
Yeah.
So thanks to Kate for talking about keeping us on track, for keeping the technical aspects of this program. Every month there's something new, and I think that has a lot to do with Jerry and Tim and Kate, all of you, making sure that there's new material in front of us every month, and that also you just keep your thumb on the pulse of so many things going on in the community, keeping us apprised of all the land use activities happening, and the CAC and the neighborhood plan. You're monitoring a lot of moving parts out there in the city and county for us, and bringing it back to us and letting us know when we need to, and helping us be effective by making sure that we weigh in when it's time, in a timely way. Other people.
And being the liaison to a lot of city and county organizations, that with your personability is absolutely ideal for helping us work through those sort of tense negotiations. So thanks for that.
Yes.
Thank you, friends.
Being
This
such
is-
an inspiration.
This is for Kate. This is for
what
Kate.
we do. So thanks, Kate.
Yay, Kate.
Hey, woohoo!
Okay.
And I can share
Brilliant.
from behind closed doors that it's all done without a whole lot of stress, which is pretty great.
Amazing.
Okay. So,
Can I start? Kate,
yes,
I think you're our neighborhood secret weapon. And all the things that are going on in this neighborhood would not have made it without you there. You are always there. You're always pushing. You're always doing one step more, just one little step. And you know everybody, and I'll connect you to that. And maybe we'll talk to this person. And without you, I have no idea what this would be. You have no idea how in awe I am of how much you get done. So thank you.
oh. It's going to be hard to get up and get my pants on tomorrow. The expectations are a little high. Okay. Well, so
So put
part of
on a skirt.
that, thank you. Excellent. So let's see. Part of the appreciation is and the looking back is great. And then what I really want us to spend a little time on tonight is looking forward and to all the things that we're going to be looking at in 2021. And we don't need to strategize or anything, but just maybe call up a little bit of what were the successes, what were some of the challenges, and what do we have to look forward to. So maybe we can start with Gary and Aubrey Park. You're muted, Lovey.
Well, even with COVID last year, Jessica and I felt that the park was pretty successful. It was beautiful. That's one reason. And we were able to get in all but one of our work parties for the year. We don't traditionally work in the summertime, so that was easy to cover. And by the time the fall started up, the city had put together, and we've got a great volunteer coordinator there, Kelsey Irwin, who they put together a touchless login feature for us. So that was really cool. And they let us work starting in October. So it was really good. Karen Finken, who's not with us tonight, but her butterfly garden come May and June and July, if for people who haven't been over there, then get over there. Because it's just a fantastic thing that she does. She pours her heart and soul into it. She goes there not just on the first Saturday of each month, but she goes there in between once or twice a month, usually, and a little bit more as we approach June. And indeed, every year the yellow swallowtails show up. So it's really pretty cool. Big miss this year was the community event celebration and the wildflower walk. Of course, the city they told us to cancel it, so we did. And that's something, Kate, you mentioned, what about next year? Obviously, we can't have it in the spring, but I'm kind of wondering, maybe depending how things go, is it possible to do it in September? Is there a way to do it with, distancing? Because we're in a park after all, and it can spread out pretty good. And maybe we can do something without all of the tents set up like we had, and focus more just on the walk and the Santa Clara Community Organization itself, and just the activities that we have there instead of bringing in all the governmental agencies. So that's something I think we should put on in the back of our mind that we might want to approach for the fall.
Gary,
Uh-huh.
Gary, in August, we could do a poison oak walk.
Yes. I can't lead that though. My doctor has definitely told me I can't.
Well, it's good teaching for social distancing, I think.
Yes. Have everybody carry a twig around of it. One thing for those of you who don't go through that park, you should really try to get down there. I'd start doing it in March because the trillium will be up. Fault Solomon still be popping up. The park has just tons of trillium, and from then on out through June and July, there's just something new every single month. what makes our group in that park so successful is this little core of people we have. It's probably about 15 people. A lot of the board members, there's Jerry's down there all the time, Patrick, Don, George, and Tim. Probably missed somebody. We've got, and then non-board members, we've got Karen and Suzanne. Jessica and I, of course, are there just about all the time. Gary Wild has joined us quite a bit. So for those of you who haven't just interacted on a personal basis with the board members or friends of board members or old ex-board members like myself, good opportunity to meet us and just learn about us from a little different approach. Anyway, that group really keeps that park in great shape. I think that's about it. We meet first Saturday of each month from 9 to 12. You can drop by for an hour, you can drop by for 3 hours, you can drop by for a half hour. You can just come by and look, see what's going on and see what the park looks like.
Great.
That's it.
And for our community garden, who would like to wrestle with the looking back and looking forward for the community garden?
We've had about 4 composting events over the course of the year. Things are kind of getting winterized right now. I've walked over there and walked the labyrinth a couple times just to keep an eye on things. But I think most of the, we'd have to talk to Peter, but I think most of the plots are rented out. And lots of people growing lots of stuff and lots of composting going on. We had to deal with huge loads of leaves, and we did that. I hauled a bunch of trailer loads of compost soil mix from Lane Forest Products because we won a gift certificate last year for, or the year before maybe, for something that we did. Energy saving, was that what it was, you
It
guys?
was from 350.org's competition.
Right, the reducing the CO2 levels and stuff. So we took a portion of that and used it to bring in some amendments for the gardeners. And so that was, you know, some regular activities that we do in the garden every year.
Tim,
And
how many plots are there out there now?
There's a bunch. I wish Peter was here because he knows the number off the top of his head. But there's 30 or more at least. So
Any report on the jumping worms?
you know, we had a couple meetings about the Asian jumping worms and crazy worms, whatever they call them, and definitely had some. I didn't notice that it was a huge infestation, but apparently these things, when they leave their worm castings, they kind of live. There's worms that live on the surface in leaves, and there's worms that live under the surface in the soil, and these jumping worms live right in the middle in that interface. And so, and when they leave their castings, those castings are actually kind of a little hydrophobic, so they don't absorb water, and they can sort of seal the surface and not let water get out down into the area where the roots are. So that's what the problem of those things are. And in some of the research I did, you know, there's not too many places who don't have them. So I'm not sure there's anything we could do, even if we tried to make a concerted effort. But regarding invasive species, I would like to point out that this fall I started a program on my own, and kind of said I was, you know, with SCCO, and so if anybody wants to get involved later, and that is at the Heilman Landing County Park. We have some serious invasive species there beyond just the Armenian blackberry and stuff. And so I took it upon myself to handle a mitigation project through the county. I had to get their permission and make sure they were okay with everything that we were doing. And So I started tackling some Japanese knotweed. We had 6 plots there, and those things are pretty tenacious and pretty invasive. So it may take 4 or 5 years before you can really get rid of them. But it involves actually injecting herbicide into the stems of the plants. A lot of places will spray over these areas, but I said, no, we can't possibly do that. So tracked down an injector and worked with McKinsey River Trust because some of it is on their property. And so they helped me with some of the aquatic safe chemicals. And I injected probably 500 stems out there, and it did a pretty good job. But then again, these things die in the fall anyway and come back in the spring. So we got to wait till spring to see if it's really made an impact. And there's lots of other invasive there, things that are really overgrown that I'd like to see us maybe get some work parties going out there as well, if people are interested.
I would be. I would help with that.
Yeah, I did. I educated probably a dozen families, and it was great because they gave me a key so I could go into the gate and drive my truck in there. And so of course everybody was coming up to me and saying, how were you able to drive your vehicle in here? And so I told them, and then I explained what I was doing, and they were just fascinated. And so people learned a lot about invasive species, and so it's a good educational experience too.
Great. And does the garden have some things it's looking forward to in 2021 that we should know about?
Not that I'm aware of, other than probably another set of at least 4 composting workshops. So keep an eye out for those. We usually announce those on the website. And Gary do a fantastic job maintaining those posts on the website. So thanks again for that.
I see Peter has joined us, and I think asking about anything new at the garden, Peter, and you're actually expanding the garden a little bit, aren't you?
We've added 4 new plots on the east end, and we are thinking of 3 more moving into the area that is the compost area. So those were old parking lot areas.
Can anyone else
He's
hear
not
Peter?
muted. Did we lose him? We lost you, Peter.
Yeah.
We lost your audio, Peter.
You're not muted, so we don't. But also we were going to use some of the River Road timbers to make sort of an entryway to the garden. So that's sort of been planned out, and I think we have the wood available to us now. We just have to figure out the logistics of putting it in place. But that'll be nice.
Well, go ahead and talk about the design of that, Tim.
Well, it's just a set of three posts that are sort of lined up together. It just funnels people into the garden through the main pathway that leads to the garden shed and into the main plots.
So that's 3 or 6?
Well, 3 on each side, so it must be 6 then.
Great. Let's see. Anne, would you and Mary like to give a looking back for 2020, forward 2021 for the neighborhood plan process? That would be really helpful.
Well, I can start by complimenting our board in terms of helping us go through each of the areas. And that was extremely helpful. And I think it gave us leaps and bounds ahead of actually the River Road group, who is just beginning that process now. And so I really appreciate your interest and cooperation in going through each of the areas and making good recommendations, and we move forward with that. And I have to say, I think CAC, in spite of the fact that we had to have all these Zoom meetings, I think we have continued to make progress with the plan. And a big portion of that is thanks to you folks for participating and giving us feedback through this. And we continue to move ahead. I look forward to getting some closure in 2021, at least in many of the areas. But what we're really dealing with now a lot is the nitty gritty of land use. And that becomes very complex, and we need a lot of advice on that. And so we're struggling through some of that right now. But like I said, I appreciate your cooperation and your help. And Mary, you can take it from here.
We're really, I think we're getting to this is where the rubber meets the road part of the whole process. Like we've been saying, well, we feel about this, we're winnowing things down. And now it's like, what is actually going to be adopted? And so this is also where you say, what is a deal breaker? So people are starting to try to figure out, like, what are things we have to have? Is it possible to have them? The city has obviously financial problems. They have staffing problems. They're running out of money. So they're not in a good place and they want it to move along. You know, we have COVID and it's hard to meet and there's a lot of work to be done. But this, in the next few months should be, we see what's actually in the plan after all these years. And whether it's a plan we like and what compromises we feel good about and what compromises, you know, we say, well, we can't do that. So it's really very critical, I think, in the next few months. Do you agree with that, CAC people? It's kind of rubber meet the road time? Anybody?
I do, and I think, you know, like you were mentioning, one of the things we've been kind of struggling with over the last couple of months is prioritizing items. And what does that mean when you prioritize items, and what happens to the other items? And so it like you said, the rubber meets the road, and a lot of these details are not easy to work through, but we continue to work through them. And I think we're slowly making progress, but there are some rather difficult discussions ahead. I can see that we're going to have, and like you said, the city has worked with us really well, but they're limited in capacity and in finances. So, you know, we're all going to probably have to make some compromises, and those are going to be very difficult to do. So we'll be coming back to you probably on a monthly basis in terms of where we are and getting your input, and that is very, very helpful. So I personally appreciate it, and I think the whole CAC appreciates the insights and help you give us during this process.
Great. Thanks, you guys. Louie, was there any other part of that you wanted to, anything they missed that you want to bring in? All right. Excellent. So I think then we're on to our old business. And I have a list of things on old business. Jerry, do you have a list of things too?
No, I don't.
Okay. So we had talked about still needing an alternate for the CAC for the neighborhood planning process, and we had put it out there, and we haven't heard from anybody except for from Jerry, who's willing to serve in that position. And so I just want to put it out there again. Is there anybody who wants to serve in that position, which would mean attending our CAC meetings and staying abreast of the whole thing, so that if somebody from the SCCO CAC has to step down for whatever reason, then you're ready to step in and take on that responsibility?
I was going to attend the meeting anyway, so I would.
Yeah, okay. And so in the past, we've had a selection process for our CAC that was through our neighborhood association. So we should figure out how we want to work on that with the two of you. So we have, Jerry, do we still have the questions that we had asked before? You know, that one sheet thing? Do you know what I'm talking about? Way back when we started the neighborhood planning process, and we needed to pick our CAC members.
I never lose anything, so I probably have it somewhere.
Okay, well, if you find that, we can have you fill it out and Mike will fill it out, and then the board will look at it and make a selection, which is what our process was before. So, okay. And whether or not you're a CAC member or alternate, those meetings are open to the public, and I encourage everyone to attend. Yes, Evan Jones. Were you waving, or did you have something to say? I guess he maybe was waving. I thought he had.
I have something to say. For the two people who are interested, do you think we should send them like the list of all the items we have so far, so they have an idea of what's involved in all this? Plus, it gets them up to speed a little bit.
I guess we could do that, and sort of like what the expected amount of time and participation would be, or is that what you mean, Mary? Like,
yeah, but also the list of, so they have an idea of, okay, here are all the action items we already have, so they can understand how exactly tedious this may be. But also, they have an idea of where we're going. But it is going to be extremely tedious. I'm just telling you now.
okay. So yes, we can get that together. Maybe you could help me get that together so we have whatever they need to be able to perform the duties. Yes?
You want me to make copies? Is that what you're asking?
Or just help identify what things they need, because some people aren't paper people, and those things are all available electronically. So as long as we know what it is we're asking for, we can have Elena or Chelsea get it together in an email, but we have to know what we're asking for.
All right. Well, do you want to do that now, or should we do that later, you and I?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Another old business, just reporting back on the surplusing the extra property at the Santa Clara Elementary / LTD Transit Center site. Just to let you know, Don Leslie and I had a conversation with Caitlin Vargas, who's on the LTD board, and Aurora Jackson, the general manager, and just shared the opinion of our neighborhood association about what we'd like to see happen and how so much work has been done by our community already through the neighborhood planning process, and trying to get some clarity on what the process is moving forward, and expressing our hopes in their ability to work with the city to create a path forward that would best serve our neighborhood interests. And so it's just an ongoing discussion, but I just wanted to make sure that you all know that we're following up with that, and that happens that way so far. And on the other end of that spectrum, I've been following up with the city to see what they're doing to meet LTD partway to help us realize our visions out there. And they just had a meeting of department heads convened by at the request of the city manager. So it's on her docket to kind of figure out how we can best move this forward. And the different departments are looking at how, whether they have funding, whether they have interest, how they would be involved, and trying to create a packet to be able to help us. I think what we're looking for is for them to purchase it in the interim, help us plan it and create opportunities for what we want to have happen there, and then be able to step back from owning it and help us meet our goals. So anyway, just FYI, working from two ends of the hose there, trying to get to the middle. The brief update on the nonprofit is we've sent the check-in, and we're going to hear back from them, and then we'll begin the process of paperwork, and then we'll work towards getting a board together. So I think we have to probably have a discussion about what we're looking for in board members and how many board members, and we'll get back to you on that. Santa Clara Community Park Planning, the third and final design workshop happened in November. I think it was November. And if you missed that and you want to see it, it's on the Engage Eugene website. You can see the video of the whole darn thing. But the brief outcome of it is it looks a lot like it did in workshop 2, with the addition of some form of skate facility. And they are doing, I wrote my notes, but let's see, phase 1. They have $4 million to implement phase 1. They're going to refine the plan for that in 2020 and 2021. They're going to construct phase 1 in 2022 and 2023. They expect to construct phase 2 in 2026 to 2030. And then phase 3, they're expecting 2040 to 2050. And so phase 3 is where we get a community center and pool. Phase 2 is where we get courts and other some other amenities. And phase 1, we get some parking and some paths and maybe, I think, playground and restroom, something like that. Anyway, the specifics can be found on the Engage Eugene website. And then the last old business is that we had talked about reaching out to adjacent neighbors for the proposed microsite housing project at Peace Presbyterian. And Dawn and I did that with the help of Dan Bryant and Regan Watchus getting a flyer together. And we went to all the adjacent neighbors, knocked on their doors, and talked to the people who were home and left flyers for people who weren't. And I think the outcome was that there was one person in person who definitely wasn't interested in having this happen. And by phone conversation, I think, we left those flyers with everybody else. And the only people who called in to the number at the city to talk about it, I think it was just the same person who was opposed to that. And other than that, we did have somebody who, when we handed in the flyer, said, "Oh, that's great. That's totally cool. I'm excited about that." So it can happen. So, so I think that's going to be moving forward. And Dawn and I also spoke to the resident who's there now. Dawn, do you want to fill in on that at all?
Well, I was going to just say, Kate, you led with the one guy who didn't like it, but 9 out of 10 actually were either positive or neutral of the actual people that we spoke to. So I think it's just important to put that in context, right? We knocked on, I think, 19 doors. And so we talked to 10 of the houses, people were home, and it was a 90% positive or neutral kind of response. So just want to emphasize that. Yeah, and I circled back gave Dan some feedback about the existing resident, some of his concerns, but basically it felt like a useful thing to do, successful thing to do.
And I think they're planning on putting it out there in January. So good timing, hopefully.
5 more Conestoga huts in a row next to we're down the line from the one that's there.
Any questions on that? All right.
I would like to say, just looking forward this year, we need more microsites, and we had discussed a little bit about maybe approaching the VFW hall and asking if they would consider having, say, a veteran or two on their property, having a Conestoga hut or two there, or maybe some of the other churches. There's a great need. So
Talking VFW or American Legion?
American Legion is what I meant. Yeah.
So does anybody want to go and ask at the American Legion or at one of the other churches? I mean, there is a large lot owned by Riviera Baptist behind their church, right? So
yeah,
in terms of making sure that there's a little bit of out of sight, out of mind in terms of a backlash from neighbors. And so I sometimes think that, like Peace Presbyterian putting in 2 behind there and not having any problems, and Messiah Lutheran as well. So does anybody have any contacts at Riviera Baptist? Okay, I can go cold call them. Don, do you want to try the American Legion, or does somebody else?
Sure, they'll love me.
What's not to love? That's what I say. Okay, so we'll try that. And if anybody else wants to get involved and I would just let you know that any person on their own single family dwelling lot can have one Conestoga hut in their backyard. So you don't have to be an organization and have or 6, you could just be a guy in a neighborhood who's got another guy living in the Conestoga in their backyard. So that's another option to help people who are needing transitional housing as they're trying to get into more permanent solutions. So.
Yeah, and actually, I would just point out, for those of you who might talk to your churches or consider it for your own yard, I spent a little time on the phone with one of the members of Peace Presbyterian, and they've had that Conestoga behind their facility for over a year now, and they said that their vandalism is decreased, their security issues have improved. It actually, having him there has been a benefit to the property, to the church. They have fewer loitering kinds of issues. Litter has decreased. Things just people hanging out and doing stuff back there doesn't happen anymore because there's a person living there watching it and paying attention. So they were really part of why they're going forward with adding more, is because having one has been such a positive experience. I would just point that out to those who are, when you talk to people about it, that's their direct experience. It's been positive for them.
I wonder if U-Haul wouldn't want one behind there. I'm serious.
Fill up all those U-Hauls.
Well, I mean, they've got so much big truck stuff, like you wouldn't even see it. It's smaller than their small version of a truck.
It wouldn't be U-Haul anymore. It would be You Stay or You Live.
You could be the cold caller there too, Dom.
They could just back one of their trailers up back there and they wouldn't even need the hut.
Hey, I've got an idea. I've got an idea for you. Look at all these empty spaces. You ever think about?
Yeah. Okay. So that's the last of old business, unless somebody else has old business they want to address. Okay, on to new business. We'll go with the ones that are on the agenda first, and then I'll add the others. So, reaffirm membership in ENI. Jerry, take it away.
Well, we've been members of ENI for some time now, and I'm not really sure. River Road has used ENI. Of course, I'm on the board of ENI, but
Tell everybody what ENI is.
Eugene Neighbors Inc. It's a nonprofit that supports neighborhoods. It doesn't cost anything to join if you join before April 1st, and it's simply another tool in our toolkit, so that if we want to use a nonprofit to collect donations or whatever, then we can. Once we create our own nonprofit, it wouldn't make any sense to be part of ENI. But right now, we have about $90, I think, in it that we got as an award for winning one of the National Neighborhoods of the Year clear back when, and so that money is just sitting there. So we just have to each year we just have to reaffirm our membership. So that ENI has a list of members that they say they are serving, and so right now I think that there are 12 neighborhoods that belong, and I'm reaching out to 2 others that didn't join last year. So it's just it's kind of pro forma.
I'll make a motion that we continue with the ENI and we join before April.
Second.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor? Thumbs up or yay?
Yay.
Yay.
All opposed? Yeah, we should just take a bunch of votes just for Jerry. Just hold up. So, unanimity, Jerry.
Okay.
The next bit on a new business is John Belcher and Claire Strawn, the co-chairs of the River Road Community Organization, met with myself and Tim and Jerry the other day, and Rini and Cindy Kohler from Neighborhood Services to help us discuss asking the county to help fund neighborhood outreach. So as you may or may not know, Neighborhood Services from the city of Eugene allots a certain amount of money to each neighborhood based on the incorporated residents' addresses. And that's a budget you can use to do outreach mailings, to make lawn signs, to subsidize neighborhood events like buying hot dogs for a neighborhood event or something like that. And we only get funding for the incorporated residents. So we get funding for 41% of our residents, and the rest of our residents we don't have any funding for. And we're not allowed to spend any of that funding on our county residents. So we can't just do fewer mailings and only just use that money. We can only mail to city residents with that money. So in the past, we have used what we call our sewer funds or transition funds, which were originally bond assessments from the implementation of sewers way back when. And those have been dwindling over time, and we've used them for augmenting our mailing and for creating our neighborhood blueprint project and other projects that we've done in our neighborhood. And we still have a little bit of our money left. We had it divided into our two neighborhoods and we had separate accounts. But River Road has spent theirs. And so they are at the point of needing other funding sources, and we're at the precipice of needing other funding sources. So we are trying to get together jointly and ask the county to fund our two neighborhoods to the same tune that the city does, which is $1.60 per resident per annum. And we're also going to ask them to fund Cahoots for our unincorporated residents. So in Springfield, Cahoots is paid for by the city of Springfield and Lane County. But in Eugene, it's only paid for by the city of Eugene. So they'll only respond to calls that are on incorporated property. If we have somebody who has an episode on River Road north of Azalea, that's county and they won't come. And so then that person has to wait for the sheriff, which we all know could be days. So we're asking them we would like to ask them to fund Cahoots for the unincorporated properties inside the UGB in the way that creates a social safety net that everybody needs in our neighborhood. I mean, the practice otherwise is that somebody has a breakdown or an episode or is suffering some addiction crisis, and you try to gently urge them over to where there's an incorporated property, which is not uncommon to happen in our neighborhood, so that you can then call for help. And that's not a reasonable way to get help. So River Road is working towards that already, and I suggested that we work together, the two county commissioners, the two boards, and make one ask together and do that. So I'm putting that in front of all of you, asking you how you feel about that.
I'm in favor of it. Do we have any sense for the temperature of our West Lane commissioner on it?
I think our best guess on how this might or might not be achieved is John Leslie, who sits on the budget committee.
I do. I sit on the budget committee. And I will say that talking about it now is timely. I will say that there's never enough money to do all the things that the county wants to do, but these are very reasonable requests and they're important. There is a new county commissioner that's been seated who has a great deal of interest in the South Eugene seat now is occupied by Lori Trieger, and she has great interest in let's just say supporting services. She has a sort of a broader sense of how services provided by Cahoots and helping the vulnerable in our community ends up saving us money in other ways, because if we can keep them from ending up in a law enforcement situation, right, it ends up being a less expensive intervention. So I think timing is good, both in terms of the budget cycle, which is just kicked off yesterday. The actual budget planning cycle just kicked off. So the department chairs are preparing their budget stuff now. And we're heading into the budgeting process right now. And again, the new commissioner. So it's good timing. I just would just say, you know, dot your I's and cross your T's. That the more you can demonstrate, the more you can present it in terms of potential savings, the more likely it is to be received favorably, because there's just never enough money for everything.
Right. I just get a sense that the commissioner whose like jurisdiction this falls into would have a large sway. But I think if we come as a united front and say we want this, that would have a sway on him.
Yeah.
It would be two of them. It would be Jay and Pat.
And Pat would be amenable to it. They all, I think what's hard for all of them is that they just know there's not enough money for everything. So, you know,
you can use the argument that there's half of the River Road neighborhood and no, 2/3 of the River Road neighborhood and half of our neighborhood that's putting in county money, and we're getting and you would kind of expect county services for it.
Say that again.
Well, we're paying taxes. This is why I'm saying that there's a lot of people in our neighborhoods that are paying taxes.
Yep.
And also voting for commissioners.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think the idea would be to frame both of them as a value, right?
Yes.
The amount of work that the community organizations do on behalf
Yes.
of the neighborhoods,
Yes.
the work that they do to help create a clear conduit between the decision makers and the general public, and to move them ever closer and creating opportunities for good interactions is invaluable. And they don't, you know, we receive no compensation of any kind for that. And, you know, which brings me to our volunteer hours. So if we have anywhere near a compilation of our accurate volunteer hours, we could incorporate that, but y'all have to get your volunteer hours to Jerry.
And that those would be any volunteer hours from 2020 because we're going to have to submit our report very soon.
But so anyway, I started drafting a letter, and I really, it's just a first draft, and I threw it over to John Belcher and Claire, and they'll look at it, and then we'll talk about it. But it basically sets out the framework of the state requires Goal 1 public participation and requires cities and counties to provide adequate funding to make that happen. Then the county has its own neighborhood organization recognition program, and we are a recognized neighborhood organization through the county. And then the city has their own neighborhood organization recognition program, and we're a recognized organization through the city, and that we're doing all this work to, you know, for these 2 municipalities, but we're really only getting funded to talk to one of them. So, yeah.
I would definitely, as a board member, I'd be in favor of the ask. I don't know if we need to have any sort of vote, but I think it's a good thing to ask for.
Well, I'm definitely in favor of it also. I don't know what kind of feedback you need as well, but if we need to vote, we can vote on it.
Probably we ought to, but I just wanted
Jerry
to
needs to vote.
Conversation to see how people feel about it.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody? Okay, well, maybe I'll make a motion that we join with ARCO and try to lobby the Lane County electeds for funding for our unincorporated residents and for cahoots in our neighborhood. Second?
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor? Hand thumbs up or a yay?
Yay.
Yay.
And all opposed? Ah, all right, Jerry, thumbs up. Okay, and do we have, this is a good time to ask if we have anybody who would like to serve on the board. You could give it some more thought because you have till next month when we're going to make have our elections, but I would encourage anybody who wants to take a seat at the table to go ahead and do that.
The board positions coming open now is held by Patrick, Ann, Kate, Louis, and Tim.
Okay. Updates. Bat phone, Don Leslie.
Kate, before we go to that real quick, is there anybody else that's interested or expressed interest in being a board member?
I'm trying to think if I've gotten requests for how to join the meeting, and I've gotten at least one person who is interested perhaps in being on the board of the nonprofit, but not for SCCO board that I know of.
I got one after I sent out the e-newsletter. I got one inquiry, and I didn't recognize the name. I don't know if this person has been to our meetings before or not. So I don't know, Patrick. I can't answer.
Okay.
Jerry, did Michael Newman talk to you about getting back on the mailing list and possibly joining the board?
No, he didn't.
Okay.
He talked about being on the board of the CAC, or being the alternate for the CAC, George.
Okay.
For the neighborhood plan.
Well, I've been on the board for some time, as you well know, and I would certainly, I was thinking of taking my name off the list to encourage others to apply, but I don't know. With the Zoom meetings and everything, it's a little bit more difficult to recruit people. But if you know of anyone, or if any of you would like to get on the board or back on the board, I'm ready to take my name off and let you get on. So keep that in mind, give it some thought.
And in preparation for that, Gary Haliski, I think you sent out a card last year for this. Do you remember?
I don't. A card.
Yeah, we had a mailing. I remember that you were trying to get quick service litho and name on that so that we could send out a card. And we sent out a postcard for last year.
I'm sure I have it somewhere in my email because I think you and I worked on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we'll have to get that postcard out. And
okay.
And if you have a contact, it might be easier for you to see about that.
Okay, I'll fire it off to you with updated dates and talk to QSL.
Okay. Okay.
Great, thank you. So then some other new business. The Bloodworks Lane County, which is the organization that used to be Lane Memorial Blood Bank, has doing these satellite blood drives. So they try to go to people's neighborhoods and have 2 days at churches or other places. And they're coming to Santa Clara in January and February, and they're desperate to get people to volunteer to donate blood. So if you are part of any kind of Facebook group or knitting club or jogging group or beer
Next
drinkers or whatever.
Next door, yeah. And what was the name of the group that's doing this?
Bloodworks.
Bloodworks, okay.
So January 11 and 12, they're going to be at the Irving Grange. I'm signed up for $9.50. If you go on either side of me, I'll bring you a treat on the 11th. And then February 15 and 16, they're going to be at Riviera Baptist. So they're really asking us to try to bring out the people because there's a desperate need for blood and people are unsure of how to be able to donate, and it's quick and easy and safe. And if you know anybody who's willing or able and can donate blood, or if you have any way to get the word out to people, that would be great.
And they do periodically test for antigens for the coronavirus. I give regularly. In the last two that I've given, the last one was probably 3 or 4 weeks ago. I just got a letter in the mail saying, nope, you haven't had it. You know, it doesn't. So that's, I don't know when that ends. It was a window of time. They extended it once already. I don't know if they're going to keep doing that or not.
I think that I sent Gary the information and I didn't look through all the promo part, but I think they're giving away cars now.
Yes, you can win a car. You can win a car.
You should have all your like late teenage people, because when they would have the blood drive at the high school, they would rock out. They've got a lot of kids. I would go down there and donate blood and pull kids in there, but you know,
What's the process of signing up? How do you sign up for it? Like
on
sign for the slot?
internet.
Go to our website and we just posted it today, so it's right there. There's a link to donate, to sign up. So you can schedule your appointment there or with the Bloodmobile.
Are they
And
doing
teenagers,
any?
can teenagers donate?
Yes, 15 or above, and you have to be 110 pounds or more. Are they doing any kind of promos like pint for a pint with Hot Valley or anything?
I don't know that I think it's the car thing right now.
Gotcha.
The car thing's the big thing right now. They might, if you walked in, you might get a pint. I got a pint on my most recent trip.
So then I would move along and tell you that the Zoom meeting for the 16-lot subdivision south of Peace Presbyterian has been rescheduled for January 11th. That's next Monday at 5:30 p.m. So for everybody who tried to Zoom in and got thwarted, I think I sent that all out to you in an email with the Zoom link. So you should have it. And if you don't and you want it, just email me. And I would remind you that the CAC meeting is going to be January 19th from 6 to 8 p.m. And if you want the Zoom link for that, you can either email me or look on the neighborhood plan website. I would bet it's there. And the land use updates, there's only 3 things going on. There's a partition at 290 Wilkes Drive, which is a lot on the south side of Wilkes Drive, just beyond where Scenic Drive intercepts it. It's an older house, like 1930s house with a large lot right there. And they're subdividing into 3 lots. There's the Peace Presbyterian partition in anticipation of building the tiny house village in the front half of Peace Presbyterian. They're dividing their property into 2 lots where the church and the parking lot on the west side are going to remain in a 1.81 acre lot, and the front half, which is going to be 1.86 acres, will hopefully, if funding gets acquired by Square One Villages, become a Square One Village. And our third one is a zone verification at 2630 Lone Oak Way for Quail Crest Holdings. And so I think that's one of those memory care medical facilities that's back there. And I don't know why they're checking on their zoning, but it must be in anticipation of doing something. So just letting you know, that's that.
Kate, did you say that there was a meeting going to be held about the tiny homes at Presbyterian?
Nope, the Zoom meeting is going to be about the adjacent piece of property, which is just south of Peace Presbyterian. There's that old white farmhouse with the long lot that goes all the way back to Ava Street.
Yeah, I heard that, but I didn't. Did you refer to that twice? Because I thought I heard it a second time. Anyway, okay, cool.
No.
Very cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's what I have. Yes, Don.
You started in on the bat phone report and then we got sidetracked. And just to say, well, it's kind of basic that there have been no calls to the bat phone yet again this last month, but I wanted to actually say it. So
Are we thinking about discontinuing that, Don?
You know, that looking ahead, it's not turning out to be a real benefit. I don't, you know, folks have helped me fund it. Thank you, Mary, and thank you, Gary Wildish. And, you know, it's been supported just fine. And it's not a big expense, but it's also not getting any calls. So either, yeah, I'm happy to disconnect it, but I also am happy to keep it going if we see a benefit to it.
And remind us, where is it listed? Where would somebody find that number?
On the SCCO website is the only place I'm aware of it. A couple of different times we've made a point of, one was the flyer that was mailed to people, like the physical flyer early in COVID, we mailed out to people, the whole neighborhood, I think, or some list we have that told people where resources to go to turn to if you know, were having issues with dealing with COVID. And there's been one other sort of COVID related moment, I think, that we kind of broadcast it more vividly on the website. But other than that, it's not on a billboard or anything anywhere.
It's on the picture it sign in front of the schoolhouse.
Hey, okay.
As a
Didn't
way.
even, didn't even know that.
I've responded to a couple of emails that came through the website and told them to call the number because they were kind of saying, who do we talk to directly? Really? And so I don't know if anyone did, but I offered them the number. Two different people. I don't remember what the incidences were, but
yeah,
they
well,
they said something like they don't deal with emails, so they'd rather call somebody.
Yeah. Back when we were getting calls, that's exactly how many we got, was 2 different calls. One was related to housing assistance and one was related to that nuisance property on Scottdale. But really, that's all. And then a whole lot of special offers. If anybody needs their warranties extended on things, or anybody needs, or that things that I have are about to expire at any moment. So I get those calls, but otherwise, no.
Well, thank you for helping with that, Dawn. I walk the neighborhood every day, and I talk to the neighbors, and I tell them to connect with us. And I've yet to find one person willing to communicate with the Santa Clara Community Organization. I have no idea what the reticence is. However, it concerns me greatly. I've spoken to Gary about it a few times. We have had recently a spat of car thefts. Interesting enough that, high-end Toyota pickups, just, high dollar value thefts. And so I was speaking with one neighbor at the end of Carthage, and she said, oh, and by the way, you're in the community organization. Can you help us turn our lights on River Road? And sure enough, we went up the next evening, and there all the street lights are out north of the 4500 block until you get all the way up to the next big intersection. And so I call, Gary's been helping us with the county to address that. But then the county came back to us, Karen came back to us and said, oh, we'll send it to the maintenance people in city because we don't take care of that stretch of lighting. So our lights are still not on River Road up there. So the walkers like myself who are out there, are in the dark, but not a biggie. But it just concerns me that, we're not really getting the mileage that we should, are we being construed as a group that is, on a particular agenda, or what, why don't people want to talk with us? I just don't know.
There's that was one of the issues in the neighborhood plan was how do you get information to people? Now we couldn't do anything as a group. The only thing we do would be to refer them to somebody else, and the somebody else for lighting, of course, is the Santa Clara Water District that takes care of all the street lights. Yeah. But they work through eWeb, and so if you were to contact eWeb, they probably contact the water district and say, hey, we've got to fix your lights and you've got to give us some money. That's kind of the way it works. So
yeah, thank you for that. But even the county rep didn't know that, and she was going to go to her maintenance crew to get the lights fixed. So, it's mysteries like that the general public could come to us with their questions and we could help them, find answers for it.
If we know the answers.
Well, I mean, point them in the right direction, in a direction. Thank you.
All right. Anything else for the good of the order? Anybody?
Yeah, I'd just like to remind everybody that if we have a general meeting next month for voting, that too will be for naught if we don't have 10 other members beside board members here. So again, we're going to have to make sure that we contact people. Right now we have 7 others beside board members. So.
Well, what kind of exciting mini program can we have that would bring people and we could advertise it? Is there something that people think is particularly relevant? Come on, you guys, cough it up.
Maybe a vaccination update.
Okay.
Can we tie the opening of the LTD and the property next to it together? Because it's going to open up on the 7th or 8th.
Right.
Let me speak to that. I mean, we are going to open up on the 7th, but there will be no decision about making that extra property surplus until this summer. So that's as I've said before, that's our first step, is the board has to vote to do that. And at that time, it's not the time to start talking about what's going to happen. It's the time for the general manager to begin that process. So I don't want to have a bunch of people pent up that think they're going to come in and be able to influence what's going to happen there when we're not even at that part of the into the process yet.
No, but
I'm glad to have somebody come in and talk about the station. I mean, that's not a problem.
yeah, wouldn't it be timely to
Yeah, we're
let
game
people
to
know
do
about
it.
the station itself?
Yeah, I'm game to do it. And I can have Joe McCormick and Randy Stodinger come in, and they're the ones that have led the charge on that project. So I'm glad to do that.
Okay.
And
Pat,
Kate, if you
So
want
it
to
would
get
be-
people riled up, just tell them we're going to put in 2 more stoplights on River Road. You know, I mean, that,
That'll bring them in,
Yeah, that'll bring them in. That'll reel them in,
and they'll be in a great mood for voting on all sorts of things.
I'm not interested in just winding people up. I'm interested in getting them involved and engaged, because everybody has their pet peeve, whatever it is, and they could work towards addressing whatever it is that makes them feel that way if they chose to get involved instead of just sitting at home and griping about the same thing every week.
You could maybe do several things. I mean, LTD could do a few minutes about the station, but Jerry brought up something really interesting. I mean, I didn't know about the streetlights that are out, and how that happens. And maybe there's some things like that, and safety and some other things that we could have maybe a round robin of interest, for a half an hour, 45 minutes, that might get more people involved.
Hey, Pat, I wanted to ask, did you notice that the gaping hole in the cement at that light that you're mentioning over on the west side of the street is only getting bigger? They still have not. They still have not. They stick tar in it, and the tar gets tossed out because they put it in there when it's wet. I mean, when it's raining, and it doesn't seal. And then the next thing you know, it's vacuous again. I mean, that is a hazard, and it has been for 2-3 months now.
Well, I know that they keep addressing it. As someone who's ridden his bike over that several times, I can attest to how bad that is. But
that was one of our buddies, but I had to go into that parking. I had to go in there, and I had to swerve. Wait, okay.
I will tell the people at Delta Sand and Gravel again to get on that. But I thought the same thing over the weekend. I rode down River Road to a friend's house, and I had to, between that and going around the sign, it was not easy. So I'll tell them.
Thank you.
When it forces the biker into the traffic lane on River Road, I mean, other places not so bad, but on River Road, you take your life into your hands to pull into the traffic lane to avoid those hazards.
That's not the case anymore. You can get onto
you can get on the sidewalk
there.
Yeah, but I'll do that. Thanks for saying that, because I'll
it's
tell
just
Andy.
Vacuous. I mean, it's huge. It's 2 feet by 8 feet, and then it's a foot deep. I mean, it's just crazy.
Yeah, no, it is. I agree, and I'm sorry about that, but I'll make sure that gets dealt with again.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Well, so we have a few ideas. We'll plan on having LTD. Should I, Pat, you'll just organize it, or should I reach out?
No, I'll take care of it.
Okay, and we'll let you know when we get closer where in the agenda they'll be, and I'll work with Ann on figuring out about a vaccine update. Like, who do we even ask? Ann, maybe Lane
Yeah,
County?
it may or may not be timely, but that was just an idea I threw out.
That'd be a great idea. People would definitely want to hear that.
We'll start at Lane County Public Health and see what we hear back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe include possible places for testing and that kind of thing too.
Yeah.
Oh, good idea. And let's see. So
I would like to ask Peter, did you get your voice back? Hello, Peter? No. Okay, but I mean,
like him like that.
There's a lot of things that we're not hearing from him on, but it's fine. Yeah, I don't want to discuss the stuff. That's up to him if he wants to discuss this. It's relative to our relationship with the church and with homelessness and with a number of different things that is going on over there. So we'll let him decide whether we're gonna hear about that next month.
or you could always send it to us via email, Peter, and then we could discuss it that way if you want. Okay, so I'll just remind you all that, Jerry, what's the hard and fast date you need volunteer hours by?
I haven't. The last thing I got from Neighborhood Leaders Council when Rini told us in December was that she was going to be sending out this form in January. I expect it any time. So that means that we have maybe a week or so that I can finish out my spreadsheet.
Okay, so you guys have a week to get your 2020 hours into Jerry. And there was something else and now it slips my mind. Oh, try to remember to invite 2 or 3 new people, different people to the meeting for next month. So we have plenty of people to take a vote for board members come our general meeting.
So one really quick thing too, I'll just give you an update on, I should have thought of this earlier, is that beginning February 1st, LTD will again be charging fares. We had suspended fares because of COVID, and part of that was the reason for that was we wanted to eliminate the contact between the passengers and the bus operators. And so we had people load from the back and then just not charge them. Well, now LTD has been able to build these shields around the bus operator that open up really easily, so the bus driver could get to somebody if they needed help pretty simply. But to guard that bus operator, and so because those are in, we need to go back to start charging fares, and we're trying to also eliminate the amount of cash that the buses are carrying. So we're encouraging people to, with cell phones, to get the Touch Pass app, or to buy a card with loaded fares on it. And you can still use cash if you've got it, but we're encouraging the other we can. So
do they still have Ticket to Ride?
Ticket to Ride? Yes.
Book of passes, basically. Yeah, paper.
Yeah, they have some of those, but they're, with a lot of the folks, they're converting those into cards, tap cards. So
okay,
they'll honor all things now. So yeah, there it is. Somebody's got it. There's a card.
It's Dawn.
There you go. There's Dawn. Dawn's got one.
Okay. Well, thanks for that. We'll make sure to put that on the website.
Sure. I can shoot you the news release on it if you want.
That'd be good.
Okay, I'll do that right now.
Super easy to use.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody for staying till the bitter end. I appreciate all of you tremendously if you didn't get that from the beginning of our meeting. And ta-da! You're a really good looking bunch. I just want to tell you. Okay. So stay healthy. And if there's anything you need, don't be shy to call. I can't necessarily guarantee I can provide it, but I'll try. Okay.
Keep smiling.
Bye-bye.
Good night.